Full card predictions for UFC 319. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. Middleweight gold on the line at the top of the card. We have Dricus du Plessis once again defending that title, this time against Khamzat Chimaev. I'm very, very convinced on one side of this fight. And I know on paper Khamzat Chimaev's supposed to win. I know Dricus du Plessis can't read. I know all that good stuff. This fight is supposed to be sick. I don't think it's going to be very sick. I think the anticipation for this fight is going to be greater than the actual contest. I think people are looking at this like it's got fight of the year written all over it. I don't think it could be further from that. I don't even see these guys getting fight of the night bonuses. Reason being is I fully expect Khamzat Chimaev to run through the champion this week. And I can acknowledge that Dricus du Plessis is a monster. I can acknowledge that I've been wrong on Dricus du Plessis before. And what I love out of the champion is that he just seems to want to win more than his opponents time and time again, because it's not like he's had this flawless run. There have been tough moments for him, like early on in the fight against Trevin Giles, round 1 against Derek Brunson, even spots against Israel Adesanya. And I know the scorecards for that fight were all over the place, but if you have 2 of these that work, you know that Adesanya probably was up 2-1 going into the 4th. But all those fights end the same way. Dricus du Plessis finishing those fights, knocks out Trevin Giles. We saw Derek Brunson, he was almost asleep how bad he gassed out in that fight. Dricus is submitting former champion and all-time great Israel Adesanya. The dude is a beast, definition of heart of a champion, one of the best in the world, but it's not enough. Khamzat Chimaev to me just presents too many new challenges that Dricus du Plessis hasn't had to deal with in the UFC. This is going to be the first time where Dricus is fighting somebody younger than him in the UFC, somebody who's a better grappler than him, someone who's a better athlete than he is, and someone who has real finishing potential. And not just on the mat, but on the feet as well. You look at Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland couldn't finish a can of Arizona iced tea. Israel Adesanya had 1 knockout win since the Paulo Costa fight. Israel Adesanya's knocked guys out, but he had 1 knockout win since the Paulo Costa fight. Excellent striking from Stylebender, but nobody's calling him a big puncher. Robert Whittaker, 1 knockout win since 2017, and that was a guy who was taking the fight on short notice, and Ikram Aliskerov. So you look at these guys, Strickland, Adesanya, Whittaker, former champions, that's great, but 1 submission win between the 3 of them in the UFC, or among the 3. A little grammar for you. If you're talking about 2 things, you say the word between. If you're talking about more than 2 things, you say the word among. That's your fun fact for the day. But you look at the Derek Brunson fight. He was given DDP hell before he gassed out after round 1. Derek Brunson was 39 years old in his last UFC fight. You got Darren Till, who was frankly not all that great in the UFC. I know he had the quick ascend, and then he got sent back by Tyron Woodley, and after that point just did not look very good at all, especially at middleweight. Brad Tavares, no finishing upside. Trevin Giles, 7-7 in the UFC, no grappling upside. Marcus Perez, 2-5 in the UFC, not very good. Dricus hasn't had to deal with somebody who can put it all together the way that Khamzat Chimaev can. Nobody's been able to consistently defend Chimaev's takedowns. We've seen Dricus du Plessis out-wrestled by a guy like Derek Brunson. Chimaev should be able to do whatever he wants. And on the feet, I think that Khamzat Chimaev might be better there too, because you see Dricus, he's throwing a lot of winging stuff, a lot of wild shots. Khamzat keeps everything tight, everything right down the middle, efficient. So technique-wise, I don't think Dricus du Plessis has any advantage here. And for you to pick him to beat Khamzat Chimaev, you would do it solely off the assumption that Khamzat's going to get tired. I don't think Khamzat's going to get tired because I don't see the fight going that long. I think he ends up doing to Dricus with the same thing he did to Whittaker. Take him down, get to his back, finish him from there. And I know people are going to be passionate about the champ defending his title. Dricus is too big, too strong, the activity level's too high, the cardio's too good, he'll break Khamzat late. I'm sure people feel that way. But I just don't see it happening. I think that Khamzat Chimaev is a special talent. We all knew he was going to become champion when we saw him rattle off 4 straight wins in the UFC and absorb 1 significant strike throughout that whole time. I get it, Dricus is the man, probably beats almost everybody else at 185 pounds in and outside of the UFC. I think Khamzat Chimaev is a little bit different. I think Khamzat Chimaev wins this fight by submission and new. Next, we're looking at Lerone Murphy fighting Aaron Pico. Aaron Pico making his debut. This was supposed to be Movsar Evloev. Evloev pulls out. People wonder why the UFC doesn't want to give that guy a title shot. He doesn't show up for work. But even that matchup was super compelling to me because of the wrestling ability coming from Pico, the power in his hands, the athleticism he brings to the division. And now he gets Lerone Murphy on somewhat of a short notice. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference though. Lerone Murphy's a pro. He's going to show up 100% for fight night. But I think it feels weird to take a Bellator guy debuting against a tried and true UFC veteran here. We saw what happened with Pat Mix. We saw what happened with Patricio Pitbull when those guys made their debut. They came up short. The level of competition that Murphy has fought is way higher than what Pico's seen. Aaron Pico has not beaten somebody of Lerone Murphy's caliber. For Lerone Murphy, I love the way that he's able to establish a lead in these fights and then stay out ahead. That's really cool to me. Some fighters, they fade or they start to look really good round one, and then as the fight goes on, maybe not fade, but take their foot off the gas a little bit. And I think that fucks guys up sometimes, because judges sometimes, or at least the fans when they're judging it, because who knows, I think the judges just... But for fans, I think if somebody's getting their ass kicked for round one and then the second round's close, it's going to look like the guy who was getting his ass kicked in round one is doing better because he's having a better round, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's winning. But by comparison, it's like, oh, he's doing way better, so he won the round. You don't get that with Murphy, though. Great ring generalship, great speed. He's going to be able to get that lead early and then sit on that lead. So for you to be getting Lerone Murphy at plus money, I totally understand if you want to go that way. But I'm going the other way, because I think Aaron Pico can have round-winning moments multiple times in this fight with that explosiveness, with that wrestling ability. I think he finds clean shots here. I think the wrestling opens up the striking. I wouldn't be surprised to see him drop Lerone Murphy here either. I could see Pico landing some clutch takedowns, especially toward the ends of rounds. You got Murphy rocking a 52% takedown defense, and I know he gets up a lot, but against a guy who was a U.S. Olympic freestyle alternate, I think that he's up against it. Because Lerone Murphy gave up 6 takedowns to Zubair Tukhugov, 5 to Makwan Amirkhani, who gassed hard after that first round, 5 to Gabriel Santos, 4 to Josh Emmett. So in this fight, wrestling's always going to be an option for Aaron Pico. I don't think it's going to be an option for Lerone Murphy. And on the feet, he might not be as smooth or as crafty as Lerone Murphy is, but Murphy isn't exactly knocking guys out. If he was a bigger puncher, I'd be all over it, because I'm a little worried about that Aaron Pico chin. If this was 5 rounds, I think that Lerone Murphy would be a better play as well. But with only 3 rounds to work, I think Aaron Pico being the guy fighting off the front foot, making Lerone Murphy fight off the back foot, landing shots that look like they just have a little bit more stank on them, I think that he's going to get the nod in close rounds, especially if he can get those clutch takedowns toward the end. So I know it feels a little gross taking the Bellator guy in his debut against somebody that's at the top of the division, but I will take Aaron Pico to get it done here. Give me Aaron Pico by decision. And real quick, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. Next, we got my guy, Geoff Neal, fighting Carlos Prates this week. Feels like an easy one for Prates. Geoff Neal has a tendency to stand in his opponent's range even when he's fighting longer guys. We saw that in the Wonder Boy fight. We saw that with Ian Gary in spots. I think Prates is going to be able to pick him apart from range, while Geoff Neal's kind of struggling to find his way in. He's going to have to close a whole lot of distance to be able to get to his spot, and he's going to have to eat punches and knees coming back his way, and he knows that. And we've seen him lose the numbers game, the volume game, multiple times in the UFC. And I know Prates isn't throwing a ton, but when he is throwing, he's connecting and he's hurting guys consistently. And I can see him hurt Geoff Neal here. I think he gets him out of there. Of course, he's got to respect the power coming back from Geoff Neal, but I really like that Carlos Prates distance management. I think he's got a really good chin as well. He was eating some clean shots from Ian Gary. It didn't really look bothered too much. He just looked like he was at a decided speed disadvantage. He was fighting somebody who could match his length. I think Ian Gary might be the more athletic guy of the two. But then when he said, you know what, forget it, throw caution to the wind, I just need to get after this guy, that's when he started having success. So I think if they fought again, Carlos Prates would probably beat Ian Gary. But we picked Gary that time. We picked against Prates last time out. We're picking Prates this time, though. This should be easy work for him. I don't think Neal's going to be able to land cleanly. There's no way that he's wrestling Carlos Prates here. Give me Prates to win this fight by knockout, I think round 2. Next, we got the Killa Gorilla. He's fighting MVP. It's a super tough fight for Jared Cannonier, in my opinion. He's physically stronger. He's the better wrestler, more acclimated to fighting at 185 pounds, but that style from MVP, impossible to game plan for, impossible to prepare for. The way he's light on his feet, bouncing around, throwing stuff that's offbeat, darting in and out, spinning technique, weird angles, you just can't. It's like fighting Dulcim. So to me, I think what MVP does to these guys is, because his style is so strange, because it can't be emulated in the training room. I mean, you can, but you're not about about to bounce in, hit somebody full power, and then bounce back out, right? So you're never going to get a full proper look. And because of that, I think what guys run into is you have to learn how to fight MVP while you're fighting him, versus with most other guys, you can watch the film, you have a training partner do what they do, you have a pretty good idea of what you're up against. With MVP though, it's very much learn as you go. So as a result, he might lose the first round and then he's behind going into the second and third. And you look, everybody that MVP's fought in the UFC, they have trouble on the feet, and I think Cannonier struggles there too. And if you're picking Jared Cannonier, it's because you think that he's going to be able to take Michael Venom Page down and keep him there. But apart from that, I don't expect Michael Venom Page to lose minutes in these rounds. Cannonier's been hurt in recent fights as well, dropped twice by RoboCop early, dropped by Kyle Bohalio, finished by Nasruddin Imavov on the feet. I could see MVP dropping him here, maybe not quite finishing him, but catching him with one of those blitzing crosses, dropping him, sitting him on his butt, and then just winning the round because of it. I think the way you beat MVP is going to be speed and wrestling. So you see somebody like Ian Gary. Ian Gary had the speed, he had the wrestling, was able to win the rounds as a result. Kevin Holland had some wrestling going in that fight, but kind of lacked the speed to keep up. Char Bullet had the speed on the feet, but he lacked the wrestling to fall back on, and as a result, got picked apart just because of the timing, even though he might have been the faster, the quicker of the two. And I think Cannonier falls in kind of that Kevin Holland bucket, or at least what Kevin Holland fell into during that fight against MVP, where Cannonier has the wrestling, but he's going to lack the speed and possibly the durability to keep up. So give me Michael Venom Page to win this fight. I think he wins by decision. Next, we have a fight between Tim Elliott. He's fighting Kai Asakura this week. Can Kai Asakura knock Tim Elliott out? It's not something that really happens. Tim Elliott's never been knocked out in the UFC. 20 fights in, you got to be a dog. He hasn't even been knocked down. I just want a little Christopher Walken there, didn't we, Oscar? Knocked down. But I think Kai Asakura is a different animal. He's so big for the division, throws so hard, and I think this is the first time we see Tim Elliott get finished with strikes in the UFC. Asakura being the bigger man, throwing the heavier strikes, Elliott's going to need the fight on the mat. And there's a lot of fights that are like that. We've already talked about it so far with a couple. I think a lot of the fights on this card are not necessarily striker versus grappler, but it's one guy who's way better at striking. The other guy needs to grapple and might not be able to do it. I see a lot of that this week. Because realistically, what's Tim Elliott going to do? Is he going to shoot for a takedown? If so, he's going to eat with the best knees in the game that are coming from Kai Asakura. He sleeps guys with those. So any bit of level changing coming from Tim Elliott, it's going to result in knees up the middle, and he's probably going to get clipped with one. And plus, he can get forced into doing that. Maybe if he's feinting for a takedown. Maybe if he's trying to, because Kai Asakura is fighting from too far away, dip in his head to be able to throw an overhand or something like that. Maybe Kai Asakura throws a hook and we see Tim Elliott try to roll underneath it. There are different reasons why you're going to see Tim Elliott change levels, and I think those knees from Kai Asakura coming right up the middle are going to find a home. And Kai Asakura did struggle in his UFC debut against Alessandro Pantoja, which in hindsight seems absurd to have anybody in that position at all. Imagine if they called Pat Mix before the Mario Bautista fight and they're like, hey, come fight Marab. It's just a weird situation. So I think Kai Asakura struggling in his debut. You can give him some grace there. Tim Elliott, KG, he's a veteran, 38 years old at 125 pounds though. I don't like that. Give me Kai Asakura to win this fight by knockout. Next, we're looking at a fight between King Bobby Green. We're going to call him Bobby, you know, just because we know him. A couple of young up-and-coming prospects going at it this week. No, I love this matchmaking, though. I like when they put old head versus old head. It's a fair scrap, in my opinion. And this fight's interesting because I really like the power coming from Diego Ferreira, and I also like how he's only losing to guys who can take him down consistently, strong wrestlers. He's got 6 UFC losses. 5 of them are to strong wrestlers. 1 of them is to this guy, Dustin Poirier, who is probably pretty good. And I like that King Robert can go in there and wrestle if he wants to. I also like the hand speed coming from Green this week. He should be able to pick Diego Ferreira apart, or at least pick his shots here and there. But the problem for your majesty is that he is lacking the durability nowadays. You see the knockouts, they're getting rough because he's not just getting like clipped, TKO, knockout, okay, you caught me. He's a warrior, but Mauricio Rufy dropped him right on his face with a spinning wheel kick and just knocked him out cold. Bad. Before that, terrible knockout loss against Jalen Turner because the ref wanted Bobby Green dead for whatever reason. Few fights before that, gets completely turned off by a left hand coming from Drew Dober. So I don't think you can say, oh, he has a bad chin, but he's just been caught by some heavy shots in these last couple of years. And look at the record, 32-17. The guy's had a lot of fights. Diego Ferreira can hurt guys. We saw him come back to win against Mateusz Rambeski. We saw him knock out Michael Johnson with that nasty overhand right. So while I think both guys are at the end of the road, I think there's more tread on the Ferreira tires than what you see at a Bobby Green. And again, he can wrestle here. I just don't think he's going to. I think he's going to stand there with his hands low and do what he does. And at this stage in his career, it's not going to change. It's not like he's going to come out there with that high guard, be super defensively sound. Bobby Green, he's going to fight you like this, and that's just cool. That's what he does. But he's going to get caught because of it, like he's been caught because of it. Diego Ferreira's a big finisher. Bobby Green's not really finishing guys too often, more just beating them up consistently, winning the volume battle. But I think Diego Ferreira finds the chin. I think he knocks him out. I think he gets it done. Give me Diego Ferreira inside the distance. And he probably finds himself on the official betting article of the week. Official betting article last week had a couple of bad beats. You see Gabby Fernandez just not trying to finish the fight at all. Steve Erceg smoking back control at the end of the third round was kind of annoying, but in Gilbert Urbina dropping Eros Medic immediately and then getting knocked out seconds later, it's just crazy. I've had that happen a couple of times, like where I pick a big underdog and then they look like they're winning early. I can remember Gabriel Miranda. He's fighting Jamal Emmers. People are like, you're crazy for picking Gabriel Miranda. Gabriel Miranda gets to his spot like that on his back, wrapped around the neck, and then ends up getting knocked out. Sergey Spivak against Jailton Almeida. I pick Spivak. People are like, there's no way he beats Jailton Almeida. Immediately in top control. I'm like, okay, the polar bear's got it. Gets reversed, gets back to the feet, gets finished. Weak. But this is the game we play. Christian Leroy Duncan and Elijah Smith actually showing up did what we needed to do, and as a result we didn't get killed. But official betting article, massive bounce back this week. You can get that and everything else on the website. DFS strategy guide, lineup optimizer, data model, projections, community parlays, all of that good stuff could be found on KunithMMA.com, linked in the description and in a pinned comment. Back to the breakdown. Next, we're looking at a fight between Gerald Meerschaert fighting Michal Oleksieczjuk. The fights that I just described to you, right? The couple of bad beats. I'm gonna get it here too. I'm almost certain of it. I don't put too much stock into people training around very good fighters, making them better. I don't. The best example I can tell you about this is guys like Dontel Mays and Maurice Green training with John Jones, especially when John Jones was moving to heavyweight. If there were ever a situation where somebody should be getting better, it should be that, and it didn't happen. I don't put too much stock into this. So I know Michal Oleksieczjuk fighting with the nerds, right? Training with the fighters, whatever you want to say. He's training with the Fighting Nerds gym, and now it's like, okay, Michal Oleksieczjuk on that title run or something? I don't think so. The idea of picking Lord Michal against GM3, the guy who has the most submissions in middleweight history, against a guy who is notoriously, famously, historically bad on the mat, especially when the odds look like this, I think is crazy talk. I can see Gerald Meerschaert just kind of finding his way to the clinch, right? Like falling into Michal Oleksieczjuk. Maybe Michal lands something big. He chases Gerald Meerschaert down to the mat. Gerald Meerschaert reverses position, gets on his back, submits him. We've seen Michal do stuff like that before. Drops Kevin Holland, goes to land some ground and pound, immediately gets his arm taken, gets triangled or arm barred by Kevin Holland. Like that. The dude is not good on the mat, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. He might improve a little bit, but I don't think if this fight hits the mat that he's going to be in a dominant position for all that long. So I have to go with Gerald Meerschaert. I think Gerald Meerschaert can just get him down to the ground. I think Michal would be surprised by the physical strength of GM3. And once he gets to his spot, once he gets on somebody's back, it's damn near a wrap. So give me Gerald Meerschaert to win this fight. I think he wins by submission. Next, we have a fight between Loopy Godinez fighting Jessica Andrade. I saw the odds and wasn't surprised to see Jessica Andrade as the underdog because she just hasn't looked great as of late. But this is the kind of fight that I would love to pick her in. I think Loopy Godinez has this way of fighting to the level of her competition, right? I think that she has that high Mexican guard, that hard-nosed, really heavy on the lead leg style, right? Jessica Andrade can be able to jab her to death. Jessica Andrade, once she lets 2, 3, 4 punches go at a time, she's going to be able to wrap her hooks around the guard pretty easily. We've bet against Jessica Andrade many times, and it works, right? Last time out against Jasmine Jasdavicius, it was free real estate, right? Because when she's fighting somebody who's big, who's physical, who's a good grappler, who's a good wrestler, these women give her fits because they take her down and she can't get back up. Loopy's not a bigger body. She's now down at 115 pounds again. Jessica Andrade, the champion here. I would be surprised to see Loopy Godinez consistently get Jessica Andrade to the mat and keep her there. I don't think Loopy has elite control. She does like to mix in the wrestling, but I think on the feet she wears too much damage. She's too hittable. She relies too much on that high guard, and I think Jessica Andrade is going to light her up because of it. Because Andrade is a former champion, because she's fought everybody, because she's produced these crazy moments in the octagon, she gets matched up appropriately. But I think this is very much a step down for her in a very winnable fight. For her to be at plus money, I think it's a steal. I know she's beyond her prime, but I think she's just a better fighter than Lupita Godinez. I think she's seen such a higher level of competition that for her to fight against Loopy, and Loopy's just walking on a straight line right toward her, I think Jessica Andrade is going to have a great time this week, and I think she's going to end up winning this fight as a result. So give me the old Brazilian dog here. I think she gets it done. Give me Jessica Andrade by decision. Alexander Hernandez fighting Chase Hooper. Tall ask, man. Tall ask for Hernandez. I think the odds make sense. I think Chase Hooper by submission here is free real estate, although I could see Alexander Hernandez just not giving up his neck at all and getting TKO'd into submission, because those Chase Hooper elbows, they're like Edward Scissorhands fingers. Those things are sharp, boy. I'd probably take Chase Hooper to win maybe round 2. I think it would take a little bit to soften up Hernandez. I think Hernandez is going to be really tired in the second round because he's going to have that lanky kid on his back for a while. Maybe Hernandez has a little bit of success early, catches Chase Hooper, but I think Chase Hooper's just on another level. I think Chase Hooper's grappling is, dare I say, elite at this point for MMA. I think that he's going to be able to do whatever he wants when this fight hits the mat to Alexander Hernandez. I just think that Hernandez weathers that first round and then just has nothing left in the second round. Chase Hooper closes him out with either elbows or a rear naked choke. So give me Chase Hooper to win this fight inside the distance. This is another one where I think the line is a little silly. I know that we see Edson Barboza looking like he's showing up to a natural bodybuilding competition, but Drakkar Klose might just be too big of a body at this point. Edson Barboza's been fighting at 145. Drakkar Klose, a career 55er. I'm not ignorant to Edson Barboza's career at 155 pounds before dropping down a couple of years ago, but at 39 years old, taking some losses here and there, taking his lumps, getting taken down a lot against a guy who's a wrestler in Drakkar Klose, I think that he's going to struggle here. I think Klose gets him to the mat pretty easily. On the feet, Edson's a bit faster. He's a bit more dynamic. The kicking game's going to be there. He's going to be chopping away at those legs. It's vintage. Edson Barboza, you talk about taking care of yourself. He is the picture of health. Like, if he's not fighting, he should be making instructional videos about how to look like that. Jeez Louise. But I don't think that helps him this week. I think Drakkar Klose is going to feel like a load. He's going to be much physically stronger than Edson Barboza. And I think on the feet, he's just going to be able to stay safe. I don't think Edson Barboza is going to knock him out here. I know he's coming off the loss to Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez is a different animal. He's going to be fighting at 170 pounds. Little Edson Barboza, little older guy now. I don't think he's going to come up to 155 and beat a guy with a wrestling advantage. So give me Drakkar Klose at plus money. I think that Drakkar Klose gets his takedowns. Doesn't finish Barboza, obviously. He's not somebody who finishes fights anyway, and Edson Barboza is hard to put away, but Drakkar Klose by decision feels like the move. Nursulton Ruziboev fighting Bryan Battle this week. Bryan Battle moving back up to 185 pounds. I don't know what's going on. I think that 170, he was a problem, and then I think the weight cut, he's just like, I'm not doing this anymore. After the Randy Brown fight, he's like, enough. So will we see him at 170 pounds again? I don't know. Will we see Nursulton Ruziboev fighting at 170 pounds at 6'5" again? I don't know. But this fight is at 185 pounds. Ruziboev coming in as the favorite here. If you guys watch the channel for a while, you know we ride for Bryan Battle. Okay, we'll ride into battle. I think that Nursulton Ruziboev is a bit cleaner. I think he's got more technique. Like, I think he's got that front kick. I think he's got the round kicks. I think he can land punches from different angles a bit better than Bryan Battle can. I think he can change levels and maybe wrestle here if he wants to. But I think Bryan Battle just has a little bit more dog in him. I think that Bryan Battle is going to be fighting off the front foot, making Nursulton Ruziboev back up the whole time. I think once his back is up against the fence and Bryan Battle's just letting them things go, we're going to see a lot of good things happen for him. It's like the fight against Kevin Jousset, right? Where he just walked Kevin Jousset down, just kept throwing, eventually broke him. I think he does the same thing to Nursulton Ruziboev here. Nursulton Ruziboev, tall guy, doesn't have arms that really match it though. Kind of got short arms. Bryan Battle being shorter, but a little bit longer in the arms, I think is going to be able to give Nursulton Ruziboev some trouble. And Nursulton Ruziboev, when he's winning, he's not beating like great competition. Eric Mechanico, who should have lost last week. Let's be real. Dustin Stoltzfus, he caught Bruno Ferreira. I think Bryan Battle's a better striker than those guys. I think he's got better chin than those guys. He's going to be on the gas, and I think he's going to make Nursulton Ruziboev uncomfortable. So I think in the prelims is when you're going to see the dogs hit. Give me Bryan Bryan battle. I was going to say decision, but I don't think so. I think once Bryan battle gets his hands going, I think that he's going to put this guy away probably late, probably 3rd round. So give me Bryan battle to win this fight by knockout. And lastly, we'll look at Karine Silva versus Dione Barboza. And yes, I said lastly because I'm not going to pretend that I'm in these Ultimate Fighter streets. I'm not going to watch 24 guys fight poorly to see which one belongs in the UFC. We'll figure it out later. But Dione Barboza fighting Karine Silva. Dione Barboza at plus money. I mean, you want to play the narrative game. Dione Barboza already beat her a few years ago. I do think, though, that taking this fight on short notice doesn't really work well for her. I think that we've seen her grappling doesn't really translate to MMA dominance the way that it did maybe pre-UFC. Obviously very good at jiu-jitsu, but I think Karine Silva has now leveled up since that first fight. She's gotten more fights under her belt. I think that she's going to be better on the feet as well. I don't think Dione Barboza is going to look all that good. We saw what she looked like against Miranda Maverick. Couldn't handle the physicality of Miranda Maverick, ended up losing as a result. Although I thought that fight really could have went either way, but when you start looking at the numbers, the control time, what it really took place, Miranda Maverick spending more time in a dominant position in a fight where there wasn't too much damage one way or the other, yeah, she should probably win that fight. But I think Karine Silva being a bit more aggressive on the mat, being a bit more aggressive on the feet, should be able to take Dione Barboza down whenever she wants. I know her takedown defense is not stellar either, but I don't think Dione Barboza is going to have the gas. I don't think Dione Barboza is going to be all that good on the feet, and I think Karine Silva is going to be first. Put Dione Barboza on her back before she does it to you. I think Karine Silva rightfully favored here. The line does feel a bit wide for what could happen in this fight, so you probably stay away from it or you take the underdog. But give me Karine Silva to win this fight by decision. That will do it for predictions. We might get a final picks video this week, depending on what the rest of the week looks like, but I don't know nothing about the Ultimate Fighter. I won't pretend to. If you guys know something about the Ultimate Fighter and who you think are going to win these fights, like I'm sure the guy from Uzbekistan's going to win. Not Uzbekistan. Kazakhstan. The guy from Kazakhstan is probably going to win from what I've seen online. Then they added another one. I don't know what's happening there, but you might. So let us know in the comments. But if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later in the week. Let's go.